The Syrian rebels broadcasted the execution of several Russian hostages live, prompting the Russian military to deploy special forces for a capture mission. The undercover agents first released drones to conduct ground reconnaissance, clearly capturing images on the reconnaissance cameras. After confirming identities, the commander gave the order, and a group of personnel lurking nearby began to encircle the building. Inside, the rebels were using civilians for a ceremony and executed them right after its completion. Team B members, observing through drones, witnessed this tragedy. Just as they were about to proceed with their plan, 9 unidentified armed vehicles suddenly appeared on the peripheral road, belonging to American mercenaries supporting the rebels. To ensure the mission's success, the commander decided to intercept the convoy immediately. They brought out anti-tank rockets and used advanced laser sights to lock onto the convoy. With the trigger pulled, the rockets precisely destroyed the lead vehicle, causing it to flip and crash into another vehicle. The explosion caused panic among the rebels inside the building. Team B then engaged in intense firefighting with the remaining mercenaries, as the rebels prepared to rush out of the building to support them. A sniper lurking in the rear mountains, armed with a G-04 sniper rifle, attacked the rebels inside the building. The mercenaries retaliated wildly using the trucks, but as the enemy concentrated, the team members immediately countered with rocket fire, effectively suppressing the rebels. In a critical moment, the rebels attempted to break out from both sides and encircle them, covered by twin-barrel machine guns, as the rebels inside planned their escape. The first member of Team A swiftly emerged from behind a hidden wall to tackle a rebel, with 2 teammates quickly shooting the bodyguards, and the 4th member swiftly bagging the rebel leader. The rest of the team finished off the bodyguards on the ground, making the capture operation smooth and efficient. However, resistant rebels appeared at the end of the corridor but were immediately shot down by the team members in a crouching position. The rebels rushing up the hill began to attack Team B members. In desperation, the team immediately brought out a 40mm automatic grenade launcher for a fierce bombardment, then quickly threw down ropes to assist a group of teammates. Team A members securing the hostages fixed the ropes, and Team B members went in the opposite direction until the hostages were pulled over the slope. After the successful capture operation amidst gunfire and explosions, both teams covered each other for a quick retreat. Upon receiving the news, a Russian Su-24 bomber took off with ammunition, followed by 2 Russian strategic bombers that soared through the clouds, then dived and rushed forward near the water surface for a special bombing mission. The Russian forces were unaware that they had fallen into a trap set by the mercenaries. The ground rebels had already reported their takeoff to the mercenaries, who then ordered a halt. Deceiving the Syrian rebels, the mercenary leader directed the rocket launcher to drive 4 kilometers towards the Turkish border, having already reached an agreement with Turkey behind the scenes. An F-16 fighter jet was on standby, ready to shoot down any Russian aircraft that might cross the border while targeting the rocket launcher. The Russian Su-24 bomber arrived at the designated target area, while the target launcher was speeding towards the Turkish border. The bomber requested immediate coordinates to commence the bombardment. The ground observation team sensed something was amiss. Bombing a target close to the border would inevitably lead to crossing into another country's airspace, but they had no choice but to proceed. The bombardment coordinates were then transmitted, and the receiving aircraft banked sharply towards the target. Following that, 2 laser-guided missiles were launched towards the rocket launcher. The hit trucks exploded into massive fireballs, and the successful mission prompted an immediate return for the aircraft. Just as the pilots were relieving their tension, a wingman spotted an F-16 quietly rising behind them. Before they could be fully alerted, the F-16 fired a missile at them. The aircraft immediately deployed flares and executed continuous high-speed rolls. The first missile was successfully detonated by the flares, but the F-16 launched a second missile, which unfortunately hit the aircraft's tail, causing it to burst into flames mid-air, with warning lights flashing rapidly on the dashboard. The pilots had little time to think, and their only option was to eject and parachute. As they prepared, the aircraft, now out of control, began to plummet. On the ground, the rebels, witnessing everything, rapidly approached the parachuting pilots and started shooting wildly at their parachutes, while the mercenary leader behind the plot smirked triumphantly. The lead pilot couldn't escape the barrage of bullets and was sacrificed during the descent, with the rebels even celebrating over his body after landing. The co-pilot, however, was lucky enough to land on a hillside. Immediately upon landing, he saw rebels pursuing him using his parachute. He quickly hid the parachute in the bushes, drew his sidearm ready to retaliate, but noticing the rebels hadn't seen him, he seized the opportunity to run uphill. The Russian Ministry of Defense received news of their aircraft being shot down. Subsequently, 2 Mi-8 combat helicopters from the Russian base in Syria took off urgently, carrying numerous assault troops to rush to the scene for a search and rescue operation. Meanwhile, the co-pilot tried to establish contact with the rapid response forces using the radio in his flight backpack, only to shockingly receive a reply from the rebel leader. It turned out that the lead pilot's radio had fallen into the hands of the rebels. The co-pilot realized his position had been compromised. Discarding the radio that gave away his location, he sprinted towards the mountain peak, with the rebels in hot pursuit. The two Mi-8 armed helicopters tasked with his rescue had also reached the airspace above the forest. However, the situation on the ground was dire. With the pursued co-pilot running towards a cliff edge, the terrorists closed behind. In a moment of desperation, he hid under a massive boulder near the cliff, with the swarming rebels soon to discover him. In the nick of time, the rescue helicopters arrived at the scene and opened fire on the rebels, leading to a frantic exchange of gunfire. Seizing the chaos, he dashed towards the slope. The rebels, spotting him, opened fire, and with a bullet wound in his leg, he stumbled on, trying to escape. The rescue helicopter overhead was also hit by the rebels. After a forced landing, the helicopter crew engaged in a fierce firefight with the rebels on the mountaintop. With the area swarming with rebels, the rescue team had no choice but to board the remaining helicopter and evacuate. The Russian Ministry of Defense was holding a press conference regarding the incident. The Major General spokesperson implied that if any country sought physical annihilation, Russia would oblige. Meanwhile, the bloodied co-pilot was hiding behind a rock, attempting to contact the base with a satellite phone. His colleague, answering the call, was shocked to find the co-pilot was still alive. Subsequently, several cars urgently arrived at the Kremlin's No. 1 building, where a bold command was issued: eliminate the terrorists without considering political factors, ensuring the pilot's safety. A decisive rescue operation was then launched, with two Su-27 fighter bombers and two armed helicopters taking to the skies, a Type 1356 frigate advancing at full speed, and ground rapid response forces urgently deployed to rescue the co-pilot. The rebels were still unaware that their doom was imminent. Faced with overwhelming military force, they were destined to be crushed. It was a foregone conclusion, a battle of annihilation. Missiles from the frigate soared towards the rebel stronghold, while strategic bombers dropped heavy bombs on their heads, overwhelming them with sheer firepower.